Satnamji, Satnam, yogis and yoginis. Hello, welcome. Welcome to today's stream. We have an interesting topic today. We are going to be exploring sacred geometry. I have been, Satnam Infinite Story, is good to see you here. You're punctual as always. Good to see you here. We have a topic that I've been wanting to explore for a while, but I wanted to prepare a little bit better. And partly it comes because of a suggestion from one of the viewers, Guillermo Tozal, 7166. You wrote something. I wrote it here. Mr. Singh, could you please explain all that geometry on the Kundalini chakra tablets? Kundalini chakra tablets. I don't know what you mean by that. Tablets. I haven't seen any tablets on the Kundalini chakra, but what I guess is that you mean is Kundalini chakra symbols, the symbols that we use. One of your favorite topics? Good, excellent. Well, feel free to contribute in the chat. Just write whatever you know. If whatever I'm talking about, you can bring your input as well. Yeah, we all learn with each other. So he said, explain the geometry on the Kundalini chakra tablets: the squared circle, the hexagon, the bunch of inverse triangles, the 5 pairs of petals in Muladhara, and all the other petals on the other tablets. If you can adhere to the rigorous logic exigencies that geometry calls for. So he put a really high challenge, right? To try to follow the rigorous logic exigencies that geometry calls for. And I'm gonna try to be as rigorous as I can. And I have studied mathematics and I studied numerology, so I like both things, and I can give a little bit in that direction. And we will explore what is geometry, sacred geometry, and what does it have to do with nature, particularly, and then we will go into the chakra. So I will leave the topic of analyzing every chakra for the end. There's one thing about the question. He talks about 5 pairs of petals in Muladhara. I've never heard of this. I've always seen Muladhara with 4 petals, which would be 2 pairs. So I don't know what you mean by 5 pairs. So if you are listening, Guillermo, and you want to clarify, you may want to do it in the comments of the video. But yes, let's start with maybe the words chakra. When we talk about chakra, we talk about wheels. That's the translation. When we look at geometry, we often think about in yoga how every chakra has a drawing, and that drawing has some elements of geometry in it. So this is what Guillermo is asking about. And in India, we can also find mandalas, which is quite a beautiful tradition. You can be in an ashram, in your little room, and then you come in the morning and some child went when you were sleeping and they drew a mandala in the front of your door. That was quite beautiful to find when I was staying there for a few months that I stayed in India. It was very beautiful to find these mandalas, and they are generally quite asymmetric, and symmetric, and they are something to observe and something to meditate upon, which is kind of connected to yantra. A yantra is a symbol generally with some geometric patterns, and you can focus your eyes on it and you can meditate upon it. So mandala means circle, I believe, the word mandala, and yantra means an instrument for holding. And I understand that it's an instrument for holding our attention. So we are looking at the symbol and our attention is focused, and we can actually practice tratakam on it. So we can focus our eyes and not move the eyes. That's tratakam. And so we meditate looking at that. Generally, I practice more meditations with the eyes closed, mostly, though I have done some tratakam in the past, and it's deeply enjoyable, and it helps to really focus the mind. So if you have a distracted mind, if you are, too many thoughts or ADHD or any of these more modern issues that arise from so much social media and TV and screens and all that, having the eyes open and focus on one point, on a particularly drawing like a yantra, can help for that. So yantra and mandala and chakra are kind of connected together, and it's interesting, this idea that chakra is like a wheel, and a wheel is a circle, a mandala is a circle, and the circle is focusing the attention. So it's already, just by the very words that we use for that, we are talking about circles. And circles are very special. Circles are something that we consider them like the perfect symbol of perfection. Infinite Story says, the flower of life produces all the sacred geometry. The symbol is molecularly burned into a wall in Egypt, and scientists have no idea how it was done. That's wonderful. Yeah, the flower of life is very beautiful. And I've seen some videos in YouTube. There's one guy who with just a ruler and some, how do you say that, compass, is it called? He does all sort of geometry patterns and games with the flower of life. It's quite nice to see. And it's quite meditative as well, to observe and to do. I've copied some designs myself with some paper, and it's very meditative. I don't know if we would ever do that here on the live stream, but maybe we could do someday. Just, plug in and just do a few things like that. It's quite meditative. But yeah, it's amazing. It's clear that these cultures knew about these things. Egypt, particularly, they were really good with math. And they connected math with also something beyond, something spiritual. So, which is something that the Greeks would also adhere to, right? The relationship between maths, music, language, and the celestial bodies. This would be also connected. And when we think about modern science being born out of those origins, and many scientists would connect science and the spiritual like they are two and the same. They are one and the same together. And I was reading, preparing for this video, I was reading some texts from Kepler, the famous astronomer, and he was deeply spiritual in his way of speaking, and he was talking about the celestial music. He was saying that everything that it goes around in a circle, it's making some sort of sound, has some frequency. I don't know, let me see if I can explain this with something. So I have some earphones here, and if you take a string, have you seen this instrument in Australia? That is one string attached to a wooden stick, and then I don't know, this one is very flexible, but do something like this. And maybe you don't hear it because of the microphone, probably, but you start, you start hearing, woo, 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 right? So there is a sound associated to something moving in a circular pattern. And so Kepler was fascinated about this, and he tried to listen. Well, if everything that goes around in circles makes a sound, doesn't the Earth make a sound as it goes around the sun? And how about Jupiter and Saturn? And Satnam Infinity, hello, welcome. You just arrived with the sound of the celestial bodies. Welcome, welcome. So Kepler was fascinated about these patterns in the sound of the spheres, and he would say that there is a harmonic relationship between the planets going around and the notes, the musical notes that we have, because musical notes come from one string vibrating, and then you just find the middle point or 1/3 of the point, and then you find different frequencies, tones and semitones coming out of that. So there is a natural harmony in the universe, and the way we create music is by listening to the harmony of these strings that are vibrating, and there is some patterns which are harmonious and some which are not, and that's how modern music comes from. And well, when I say modern, I mean music, yeah, from the origin of this. And it's very, very interesting how mathematics and music is actually connected in such a strong way. And what we will see is that, well, let's see, this music or this mathematics, they are in nature. They are around us. They are in a string vibrating. They are in a planet going around us, and they are also within us. They are in every chakra of us. So this is where we come into the spiritual side of geometry, and we connect with the sacred geometry. But before going into the spiritual geometry, is basically the understanding or the study of the space. And the space has some properties. And you will, for example, I should have prepared some examples for easy ways to do this, but let's say I have a little ball. Imagine this was bigger. It would be nicer if it was bigger, but this ball, and I would, this is a three-dimensional ball, but as it projects on the paper, it will leave a circle, right? So it's a three-dimensional object that projected onto paper will leave a circle. And so this would be interesting, studying the properties of what can be projected into paper and how can we study that. And so, again, circles are very important. Circles, we associate them with something perfect. But then there is all sorts of lines and the crossings of lines, what they produce, squares, triangles, and they are going to be having a tremendous significance as well. So this is something that you would study in geometry and also crosses over with sacred geometry and maybe some other spiritual realms. So in the question from Guillermo that this video starts from, he was asking, one of the first things he asked is the squared circle. He asked about the square circle because he's asking mainly about the chakras. And if we look at the chakras, the first chakra, I'm going to show some drawings that I did. By the way, these drawings, these are inspired on the classical diagrams for the chakras. But there's one thing that I've changed mainly, which is the colors of the petals. You will see that they have different colors. And if you don't understand why am I using these colors, to explain it properly, you would have to watch the course that I did on mantras, particularly when I was exploring how all the sounds that we can produce with the mouth, they are reflected in the 52, Sanskrit letters, they are reflected in the petals of the chakras. But the chakras themselves, they are always represented like a lotus flower. A lotus is a wonderful symbol that is utilized in India. It represents the opening of consciousness, and it's particularly beautiful because the lotus lives in a pond, and what is underneath the water, the surface, everything that is the water, it can be quite murky, quite dirty and black. And yet, the lotus flower is capable of crossing through all the blackness and rising above the surface and opening up with this beauty that it has. And so that symbol, it's already a metaphor for what happens within us. There is a certain darkness in us. There is avidya, the lack of knowledge, the lack of wisdom. And out of this ignorance of avidya, we have to find the light that is going to bring the lotus to the light. The opening of the lotus, it's because it's opening because he's receiving the rays of the sun. And he's doing that. This is like receiving the light of consciousness. So you are becoming conscious and aware. And the sun is also a symbol for God. Remember the circle. So it's like the lotus flower opening up is like receiving the light of God and the light of consciousness opening within to meet the light of God from without. And this is the meeting of both. So that's how the lotus has always been a symbol for enlightenment and for looking for the light and crossing our darkness and going beyond the darkness. And the lotus does that naturally. It leaves, the roots are down there. And you don't even have to worry about that, which is a nice thing to say after having been with all these videos talking about mind games. Yes, mind games, there's a lot of darkness in mind games. But you know what? We can go above. We can rise above and beyond the darkness and open up our own petals, right? To meet the light. So this is a very sacred symbol already, just using the lotus flower. And that lotus flower that is such a beautiful symbol, it is utilized in every chakra because it's said like every chakra has to wake up. Because in a way, every chakra can be closed and it can have some karmic manifestations, or it can be open and there is some dharmic manifestations. So we want to make every chakra flourish in a way. So every chakra will be a lotus flower. However, the symbol within and the petals outside are different. And the number of petals will say something about the chakra. And I think there is a lot of significance with the numbers. I'm not going to go too much into that because today's video is going to be long. I don't know if I will be able to cover everything today. But if you want to know more about why these letters with these colors, the way as I mentioned, these colors, I add them myself to represent the vibration that is happening in the body. And I cover this in quite a lot of detail in the course on mantras. And the end of the course, we completed by seeing the whole diagram in which we explore the vibration of the sounds. Of every sound when we do the sound, it vibrates in the body in some way according to these colors, and you can see it also according to the petals in the chakras that are vibrating. That's a fascinating study. It's fascinating to me, and that's why I dedicated 15 parts on that course. So if you want to know more about that, I recommend that you go and watch that one. Today we will not do that, but we will actually observe the other thing, not what is outside, but what is inside. So one of the questions, the first question was the quadrature of the circle. He asks, and I believe he refers to the first chakra, because this is where we see the square next to the circle. Now, this square and this circle do not show the quadrature of the circle. When somebody says the quadrature of the circle, generally they are referring to what it would be called looking for it could be quadrature of the circle or squaring the circle. These are two terms that are used independently. And it means if you have a given circle with a certain area, right? You draw it with a compass. And then can you, I think it's called compass. If it's not, please correct me. Please let me know in the chat. What's the instrument that you use to draw circles with? In Spanish, it's compass. I'm not sure about English. I'm not 100%. Because a compass is to find the north and the south in English. So there may be another word for that, but let me know in the comments. So you're using one of those instruments to draw circles. And a ruler, can we find, given a circle with a certain area, I'm correct? All right, thank you. So it's a compass. It's the same word, kind of using different meanings then. So using a compass and a ruler, can we create a square? You were a drafting instructor? Oh, nice. Lovely. So can we use those to make a square that has the same area as the circle? So there's been a lot of attempts from many mathematicians trying to, just with a compass and a ruler, create a square that has the same area of a given circle. And it was not until 1800s and something that was demonstrated that it was actually impossible. You can get very close to it. I think there is beautiful examples from Ramanujan, the Hindu genius mathematician, that he had these incredible realizations and he would just write them, and he wouldn't try to demonstrate them. He would just write how it is. And he created one which was really, really close, but you can never get to the exactly perfect size because it's impossible. And the reason why it's impossible is because of pi. And pi is a number that is not rational. It's not only irrational, but it's also, how is it called? Transcendental, which is an amazing word to use in mathematics. It makes sense for us, yogis, right? Yogis and yoginis. Transcendental number. Pi is a transcendental number, and that means that it's not algebraic. It cannot be the root of some polynomial. You cannot calculate it, let's say. I don't want to get too technical, but you cannot calculate it through some equation, let's say. It's an irrational number, and it's even more than irrational, it's transcendental. So because of that property, you cannot just with the ruler and the compass, ruler and the compass, find that one. And yet, so many people were trying it, and it was part of the quest of the philosopher, just like the alchemist, right? Trying to find that. And algebra was one of the root teachings that a noble, learned person would have to study. You know, it would be like the basics for later rhetoric and other more higher function language communication skills that one would have to develop, and many of them would be based on some very basic mathematics. So how interesting that many people who would be working on themselves, and they would try to approach alchemy and sacred geometry in such a way. So that's I think very, very interesting. There is a good number of physicists and also astronomers who were actually also numerologists and doing, how do you say that? Even chemistry, doing alchemy, right? Many chemics were also alchemists, and yet modern science only considers that part of them which was more scientific, and yet I don't know who was it. might have been Newton or maybe some other really, really important figure that had more writings on the alchemical side than on the actual chemical side. So something like that. I don't think it was Newton with the chemicals, but one very major figure of Western science, of advanced understanding of science as we take it right now. But he was actually more concerned with the spiritual side, actually. And again, if you read Kepler and think about music of the spheres, then you would find this. He would be deeply spiritual in that way. So this idea of trying to, the quadrature of the circle, trying to find the square and the circle, it's a metaphor. And what kind of metaphor can that be? Well, the square has 4 sides. So as we come into the 4th chakra, we're going to see that there's going to be something happening in the heart. And when we are going to study numbers, we're going to see that number 4 associated with the square is the opening of the triangle. Triangle is 3. So when you go into the 4, you are opening the triangle. And the triangle is a symbol that is encasing us and is giving us some structure and some basis to construct structure in the 3-dimensional world. But at the same time, it's our jail. So the navel, up to the navel, this is the instinctive part of the human. When you get to the heart, you are opening to the human, right? From the animal to the human. And that opening of the triangle into the square, that's finding the human dimension. And yet, the circle is a symbol for the spiritual dimension. So finding a way in which the square and the circle can have the same area is a way to try to connect the human with the divine, which it's such a beautiful paradox that at the end of the day, by 1800s, it would be demonstrated that you cannot do it. No matter how close you can get, it's impossible, right? So I think that's a beautiful metaphor for the spiritual life. We try to go as high as we can, and yet we will never be God, right? We can merge with God, but we are not gods, right? in that way. No? So this is an interesting thing. Studying the quadrature of the circle would be a way of exploring this irrational transcendental number called pi. And I find that very interesting. Now, this geometry would be utilized in spiritual contexts when we are studying, for example, the way to construct a temple. If you looked in India, the Hindu temple construction would have to follow certain rules, which were actually very close to what we study in fractal geometry or fractal patterns, and understanding that small part of the temple has to be self-similar to the whole in some way. That's what a fractal is. So one little part is like a fern. You look at a leaf of fern, one leaf, you cut it and you zoom in, you see the whole plant again, right? And then you took another leaf and then you zoom in and it's the same plant. So there's a fractal dimension to the fern, and that's happening in nature as well. This is, to me, every time I find these diagrams on acupressure, and they see how the human body, all of the body is in the ear. This is it. The ear has the whole body. The hand has the whole body. The tongue has the whole body. The eye has the whole body. So it's like a fractal. One little piece is a reflection of everything else. And so like in the temple, they would have to build one part of the temple self-similar to the whole. Just like us in the body, a part of us is similar to the whole. We can see this even in the most, like the smallest cell of the human body containing the DNA for the whole body. So it's like the little bit has the whole. And then going even bigger, our chakras, they are like the 7 planets out there. So it's like we are a reflection of the whole. So this is, you see the many layers of what they say, as above, so below. You can see these many layers from the atoms, which also look like planets, right? And going down into the quantum level, then coming up to atoms, then particles, then you go to the cells, and the cells are a reflection of the whole body, and the body is a reflection of the solar system, and that's a reflection of the universe. And you can go in and you can go out, and there is this incredible feeling that everything is connected, and there is some magical force guiding everything. And this magical force manifests the most in these universal constants that we find, like pi, which is this transcendental number. If pi was different, if some of the constants of the universe were a little bit different, the universe might disappear. This is how dependent we are on these exact numbers. So studying these numbers is of interest to mathematicians for millennia, and they would be also utilized in sacred architecture and things like that. I have a few notes on what to say today, but I'm bombarded by many ideas of what to connect in other places, so it's kind of difficult to stay focused, actually. I need the yantra in front to say, well, what are we going to cover? Because we already been half an hour, and I can feel it. There's going to be so much more wanting to come out. So let's talk about these constants and these numbers, these universal numbers. We're going to go more into that, but before we go more into that, we need to explore some numbers that we consider divine in some way. 108 is one of those, and I've done some other video in which I talked about 108, but maybe I didn't talk about it too much in detail. So I will just mention a few things. One thing I did mention about 108 is that 108 is, let me write it here. So 108 is 3 particles, 3 parts. And whenever we have 3 in yogic philosophy, you can always check whether there is a correspondence to God, or Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, yeah? The creating, the organizing, and the destroying force. And look, number 1 is the beginning, is the origin, is the first number that we start to count with. So yes, this is the origin. So this is the generating. And the 0 is this perfect circle, this perfect symbol that shows that things come and go, and they keep on going, and they are distributed and organized in such a way that they continue to exist. So that's the 0, yeah, the continuing, the organizing part of God. And this destroying, now 8, though it's a symbol of the infinite, in numerology, we also associate it to death. Because number 8, if you look in the Mul Mantra, the 8th part of the Mul Mantra is Akal Murat, which means we are beings which are immortal. There is something part of us that doesn't die. There is another way to connect it to number 8, which is that the 8th spiritual body of the 10 that we have is the pranic body, prana. And when the prana runs out, we die. So 8 being the prana, we can feel it as dying. And we can also see like dying is a way to merge back with the infinite. It's like going back to the infinite. So you can see the infinity symbol in the 8, and that would be the D of death. So that's interesting. That's a connection with 108. And 108 is the number of malas, beds that we have in a mala. I have one here, I can show you. I have a mala around the head of my Ganesha, that is my altar. And so malas have 108 beds, plus the Guru one. And when you are meditating and passing the beds and you are chanting the mantra, then you are a practice of meditation with mala would be to chant 108 times one mantra, whatever mantra you are charging the mala with. So this 108 is very significant when we are doing that. Now, there's a number of things which are 108 as well. 108 is if you take the Earth to the Sun distance, this is 108 times the diameter of the Sun. More or less. Yeah, I think it varies depending of a number of things with the axis and the kind of movement that the Earth does. But the average is, I think, 107.5, something like that. So it's very, very close to the 108. And Earth to Moon is 108 times the diameter of the Moon. It is because it's almost the same. It's almost 108. Very, very similar. And this is the reason why sometimes we have solar eclipse. Or a lunar eclipse, right? If the moon was much, much smaller, it would pass in front of the sun and you would just, It would just pass along. But the fact that we can have the moon and the sun covering perfectly or almost perfectly, it's because they are in the same proportion, and it's because of 108. So knowing how in the prehistoric times the sun would be associated to God, because, sun brings life. If there is no sun, there is no life. And when the sun would come out, we would come out of our caves to do whatever we had to do, hunting or gathering or whatever, because we need light to operate. We human beings are not designed to work in the darkness. Our eyes don't work like that. So sun means life. So sun is God. And having an eclipse would be like something is happening with the gods. So now you can understand that would be connected to 108. So interesting, yeah? 108, there is many things which are 108 also. Let me just put a few which are more relevant for us. The Marma points. This is Ayurveda. They are 108 in the body. The Marma points are the connection between the physical body and the energy into the spiritual. So that's interesting. And if you look at we represent this in iconography. You can see, I think it's Vishnu. Vishnu is the one who has a number of arms, and then one of them is holding. Some are weapons, some are gifts. In one of them, he holds this Sudarshan chakra. Chakra is a wheel. It's a weapon that has edges. But this one has 108. So very interesting, because in Kundalini Yoga we have a very important practice we call Sudarshan Chakra Kriya, the Kriya of the Sudarshan Chakra. So it would be interesting if you practice that Kriya to know that that's connected to 108. So it's also an interesting thing. So that's another connection. There's some message coming up. 108 also has the sum of 9. 9 being a special number reducing to 3, the Trinity. Some people also chant 54 times, half of 108, but still the sum of 9. Yes. And 36 as well. Yeah, 36 would also be a significant number, 1/3 of the 108. But yes, 108 adds up to 9. Good. Thank you for mentioning that, Infinite Stories, because we have 9 numbers. 0 is kind of special because, as I mentioned, 0 is like all of it, like the wholeness, right? So we have 9 numbers. And everything has a number. Like if we think about water, the number of water is 2 because it's associated to the second chakra and is the second element, the second tattva, and so on. If we think about, let's say, committing to doing something, commitment is associated to number 4 because it's the 4th chakra, it's the heart, who says, I'm committing, right? I'll put my heart to that, yeah? I'm committing to that. So it comes from the heart, and sometimes we do this, I swear, it comes from the heart. So this commitment is associated to number 4. So everything has a number. The word number also has a number, and has 9. So how interesting that 108, this God concept, if you add them, gives the number 9, being the number of numbers. And it's through numbers that we connect to the spiritual in this way, utilizing numerology. And when you study sacred geometry, numbers are part of it. So I find it very relevant and interesting. And yes, 9 is 3 times 3. And there's something about that as well. And the 3 is the triangle. And we're going to see a lot of triangles when we go into the shapes of the chakras. When we see the symbols, we're going to see a lot of triangles as well. Another thing that is 108, and I find it very interesting, maybe, I hope I don't lose you too much here. I'm going to do a little game. This is a game I did with my daughter this morning. I was just showing her this because I'm going to talk about 108. Let me talk about this. So, do you know dominoes? I don't know if in your culture you play dominoes, but they are a figure like this. They are little pieces together, and they have maybe 2 dots and then 1 dot. You play dominoes like that. It's very small, but it's because I have to do many things here. So the word dominoes comes because if you have 2 squares and you want to join them in a way, in how many ways can you join them? Well, there's only one way to join them, which is 1 side by side. And this is called dominoes. And do coming from 2. But there is other mathematical things that you can do when you add another one. Well, These are called trominos. Did you know? I just like this curiosity thing. So if you have the dominoes and you add another square, how could you add it? Well, you could add it here, for example. Or you could also add it on the side. There you go. That's it. That's the two possibilities. So you have that this is one. There's only one way to join two dominoes. There's two ways to join three trominos. And we can go on. Let's do one more. So when we have four tetrominos, tetra, yeah, four tetrominos. And if you're looking at tetrominos, we can take these two shapes. So you have three, and you can add an extra one here. You can have three like this. Add another one here. You can have these three. You can add another one here. And that's it with the three. And then with this one, that's this one. You can add another one here. And with the same one as well, you can add another one over there, like a stair. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These are 5. There are 5 tetrominos. Now, if you notice the shape, you will probably recognize these are the symbols of Tetris. If anyone played Tetris, these are the symbols that were utilized for playing Tetris, which is very interesting. And there is a whole field of math working with these kind of symbols. Well, turns out, if you go on, like pentominos, penta, we would have to do the same. You would find that it can go up to 12. If you go up to 7, this is 108. Now, to me, that's fascinating, because you remember when we were starting to study number 7, this is 7, yeah? This is 5, 4, 3, and 2. So, when you get to number 7, when we studied number 7, we were talking about how number 7 thinks that he is the best of the best. He is the top, yeah? He is the mind, he is the ego, he is the number that thinks that he is the top of the world. Because actually, from the perspective of the 7, the next number is 8. 8 is infinity. There's nothing beyond, right? So there cannot be anything beyond the 7, because then you come straight into infinity. It doesn't know, the 7, that there is a number 9 as well, beyond the 8. But from the perspective of the 7, it's like, I'm the top of the world. And how interesting that it is with 7 that 108 figures appear. And actually, it's with the 7 pentominos that the first pentomino with a hole appears as well. Okay, it may just be a curiosity, right? Maybe you are not very interested in these things. I am interested in these things. Let me turn them blue so that you can see them more clearly. So there is a hole in with the others. You couldn't do a figure that was closing with itself in a way to leave the hole. That's interesting. You can find something similar to this when we are studying. If you have a circle of this size, and how many of these can I put around the center? Well, we have 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm trying to do them exactly the same size. 5, 6. So for every circle, there is exactly 6 circles that can go around it exactly like that, which is the 7. So that's connected to the 108. Did you know this? Is it interesting? Well, knowing the properties of substances, if you put bubbles together, if you are doing soap bubbles for kids, I do this a lot with my daughters, soaping bubbles. I used to do a lot, not so much now that they are older. But as the bubbles get closer together, there's more bubbles on the solution. They press on each other, and the surface, because of surface tension between them, they create a hexagon. So hexagon appears from here. And we're going to see this. This is going to come up in the studying. I didn't do a very good hexagon, I realize now. But trust me, these have 6 sides. Just trust me. It looks more like a circle, but it doesn't. So hexagons appear naturally because of the surface pressure. You can see this in bees hive. You can see this in a beautiful place that I recommend anyone who likes to travel to visit, Giant's Causeway in Northern Ireland. There is this incredible rocks that come out of the earth, and it's volcanic rock, so because of the pressure of the surface of the rocks and a whole process, it happened that the rocks crystallized or solidified in this hexagonal pattern. So you can see these hexagons really high going up. And then if you look in the ground also, the whole ground is all made of stones, like tiles, like in a bathroom, like tiles, hexagonal tiles. And that's fascinating. Yeah. That's Giant's Causeway in Ireland, if anybody's interested to visit that. I was there when I was 21, and it was fascinating. I just saw that on YouTube yesterday, really? All right. That's a synchronicity, right? We were getting ready for the video. Yeah, nice. It's incredible. It's very impressive. And they said they have this mythological story that there was some giants who were living there, and they were creating a road to the other side. I think it was to Scotland. And anyway, it's quite a nice thing. But you see, it's connected to 108. So I hope you find this interesting, yeah? The fact that this is the first time it appears a whole and how it disconnects. So this is a number that is very significant for yogis. We utilize this number a lot. There is more things which are 108. Then let me do another of these games with numbers. I like to do games with my daughters, and there is this one game we were exploring the other day. I think it was a few days ago. I don't know how it came up, but it's like, if we have, let's do 6. If we have 6 ones, I hope I'm not losing anyone with this example, but I promise this is interesting, okay? This is how mathematics appeared, and this is connected to sacred geometry. So it's good to know this. And if you start to appreciate these patterns, you will learn to love maths. I love maths always. When I was little, I remember being thunderstruck learning the Pythagoras theorem. More than a theorem, it was like a poem to me. When I saw the triangle, and this side, and this side, and this area of this, and you add them, it's like a squared plus b squared equals c squared, and my brain is like, whoa, one of these brain like exploding moments. It was like so beautiful. I was like, I think the other kids were like, taking notes. We were like 40 in a class. It's impossible for a teacher to inspire all these many kids. But to me, I remember that drawing it and putting it on my paper and seeing it. It was like, what is happening? So that was a Pythagoras poem, not theorem for me. So I know it was not this experience for many people. For many people, when they approached maths, it was hard and it was painful, and sometimes they grew to dislike maths. And maths are in nature, and they are beautiful. But let me just show a little example. I was doing with my daughters this game. Well, if you have this number of ones, and you can add them or multiply them in any way that you want, what is the highest number that you can get? You can use brackets. So, of course, if you do 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1, okay, we're going to have number 6. Can we make it bigger? Well, if we join these two, 1 plus 1, and we multiply by these two, 1 plus 1, and we multiply by these two, 1 plus 1, we have 2 times 2 times 2, that's 8. Easy, yeah? Can we get it bigger? Well, it happens that we can. Actually, we can do 1 plus 1 plus 1, multiply by 1 plus 1 plus 1, and this is 3 times 3 is 9. Okay, Sounds good. Sounds easy. So far, so good. Okay, then I give my daughters this 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 9 ones. And you would think, well, if I group them in 2s, it's bigger. If I group them in 3s, it's bigger. Let me group them in 4s. Let's see what happens. Well, if you group these ones, if you group them in 4s, you can have 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1, 4, times 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1, 4. Okay, there's 1 left. So this is 4 times 4. That's 16 plus 1. That's 17. It's pretty good. Yeah? But can we make it bigger? Well, you can say, well, why not join this one and make it bigger? Okay, so we can do 4 times 5. Yeah? Yes, we can do 20. That's pretty good. But hold on a second. This is the interesting bit. Okay, pay attention. Well, what if we forget about grouping them as big as possible and we try to make a group of 3s? 1 plus 1 plus 1 times 1 plus 1 plus 1 times 1 plus 1 plus 1. Well, this is 3 times 3 times 3. That's 27. That's much bigger, isn't it? Well, why is this bigger than 5 times 4? And then, if this is bigger, how can I make it even bigger? Maybe if I do 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, could it work? Let's try it. So let's do 1 plus 1 times 1 plus 1 times 1 plus 1 times 1 plus 1. 2, 4, 6, 8. And then there would be one outside. I mean, this would be 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. But we can put it inside to make it even bigger. So this would be a 3. And 3 times 2, that's 6. 12, 24, 24. So it's not, I cannot multiply in English. I have to multiply in Spanish, sorry. So it is not bigger. So it turns out that this is the optimal solution. And then you think, well, how come groups of 3s is better than groups of 4s, or even a group of 5? And then you could put more numbers, more ones. No matter how many ones you had, now we come to the generalized theorem or like way to get the biggest number. You would have to try to do groups of 3, groups of 3, groups of 3, and whatever is remaining, groups of 2. And that's the best way, the optimum way to get the highest number. And now, why is this? Well, the answer is E, which is a weird number that in mathematics the first time you may come upon is like, why do we have to study this? This is one of those numbers, like pi, which are transcendental. Now, E, it's 2.7. 2.71, 2.718. And so 3 is closer to 2, which means that if we group things in 3s, the closer we are to E, the higher the number is going to be. It's linked to logarithms and exponentials. I'm not going to go into why does it work like that, but let's just say that the closer we are to this number, the optimum that we can find. And this is behind logarithmic manifestations. We're going to go into a logarithm in a moment because we're going to study the golden ratio, and golden ratio is intimately connected to logarithms. So E is actually more like 1 plus 1 over 1 plus 1 over 1 times 2 plus 1 over 1 times 2 times 3 plus 1 over 1 times 2 times 3 times 4. You see where I'm going? Up to infinity. Yeah, this is called 1 over n factorial. This is, if you understand maths and you want to go to this is how to calculate E. But it's very, very interesting that this number, which is, do you remember when we were talking about pi and the quadrature of the circle and we couldn't calculate it? So this is how it comes up. Here is a mind catcher. If $1 and $1 is 2, why is 1 times 1 equals 1 and not 2? If you multiply a 1 cent, 0.1 times 1 cent, 0.01, it equals 0.0001 and not 2 cents. weird, right? Yeah, this is why 0 is a special thing. It's not even, can we say it's a number? It's something very special. When you do a 0 point something, it transforms the something, right? And if you add the 0 behind, like 10, it transforms the 10. By the way, this formula actually came out of something very close to what you're saying, infinite stories, because I believe the way it originated, let me get it right. Somebody was studying, I don't remember the name, but somebody was studying economics and said, well, imagine that you give me $1 and at the end of the year, I'm going to give you $1 back. Or let's say, I'm going to give you 100% interest on your money. Let's say, sounds good. Yes. Okay. Nobody does this, but let's imagine this. And you think, well, that's wonderful. Ardaas, let's do that. That's 100% on my return. Yeah? Well, what happens if instead of paying me at the end of the year, you pay me in the middle of the year? By August, you pay me the 50%. You pay me the 50% of my money. The 50 is 1/2 of my money. And then at the end of the year, you pay me the other 50%. But at the end of the year, we don't have only, because this 50% is already 150. So by August, I would be having $1.5, yeah? And I keep the money with you because I still want the other 50%. But now the next 50% you give me after August, it will be 50% over this. So that's 1/2 times this. So, and you're saying, well, that's more. I like this. Why not, instead of paying me twice per year, why don't you pay me the interests 3 times per year, or 4 times per year, or 5 times per year, or every day of the year? And the more days, if you do 256 days, every day of the year, 300, sorry. If you give me my interest every day of the year, you are getting closer and closer and closer to, at the end of the year, I would receive $2.71. I would start with $1, and at the end of the year, you would have given me 2.71. So it's very interesting, yeah? This is how it originated. It came from economics. And yet, the application to logarithms is very, very interesting. So let me explore logarithms, but to do that, actually, I'm not going to explain it with math. I'm going to explain it with images, which are utilizing the golden ratio. Because here we come into some of the most interesting visual appearances of mathematics. When we go into the golden ratio, it just pops up to the face. Yeah. So I prepared a little PDF on the golden ratio some time ago, and I'm just going to share it here on screen. So hold on a second. Let me check. I don't want to touch the microphone. I figured out what the problem with the microphone is the cable. I need to buy a new system, and I will do it. Here it is. I have not gone into life cycles with you yet, so there's no video on my channel on life cycles. Let's just say that every 7 years our life changes, and also every 11 and every 18. Every 7 years our consciousness changes. Every 11 years there is our intelligence is transforming, and every 18 our vitality. But we will explore this some other day. Let me just say that these three cycles, hopefully you can see them on the screen, they follow a very interesting pattern. Look, Fibonacci sequence is that one where we add the previous number to the next. Yeah. So 1 plus 2 is 3, 2 plus 3 is 5, 5 plus 3 is 8, 8 plus 5 is 13, and so on and so forth. So you can find these numbers. Now, if the initial seed is not 1 and 2, the beginning, but is 1 and 3, you find that 7 and 8, 11 and 18 are the numbers that are, sorry, the numbers of the life cycles. This is something that Ardaas Singh from France, I think he first noticed that in our studies of the life cycles, and he wrote a message to the community, and I found it fascinating. So kudos to Ardaas Singh for discovering this. 29 has also a significance for us, but 7, 11, and 18 is the most important. Now, why is Fibonacci important, this sequence, where you add the previous to the next? Because Fibonacci, if you take it to infinity, if you keep adding numbers, the proportion between one number and the previous and to the next follows the golden ratio. Now, what is this golden ratio? Well, in mathematics, you have two proportions in golden ratio. If A plus B, these two, you add them and you divide them by B, well, you have it here. So if you divide this by the little one, is the same as dividing the big one by the little one. Did I say that right? I may have said it wrong. Maybe it's A plus B divided by A is the same as A divided by B. This may be wrong. But the thing is, there is a proportion in between the size of the next number to the previous. Yeah, I think this is wrong. This should be A, I believe. A times B divided by A as A divided by B. So this is called, this number, I think this is phi, and this is 1.618. 1.618. So, and if you square, if you do 1 plus, sorry, what am I doing here? Oh, square, I don't know what, I used a different number here, but square would be 2.618, to the fourth would be 7, to the fifth would be 11, and to the sixth would be 18. Okay, so here we see the 7, the 11, and the 18. So again, someday we will do a video on these three numbers, how they are relevant. But in any case, let's just say that Fibonacci sequence follows the golden ratio, and that proportion, we can find it in nature in many ways. So here we can see A plus B is to A as A is to B. And you can see it here with numbers. So you start from the little one, and then 2 is 3, 3 plus 2 is 5, and you can see the proportion here. And you see this little square is in proportion to this big square, just like this square is in proportion to this square, which is 13. And you keep adding, and you have a spiral. Very simple, okay? If you don't want to go too deep into the mathematics, let's just say that this spiral, this follows the logarithmic, this opening of the numbers follows this. It follows the Fibonacci sequence quite closely, and you can find it in many places in nature. You can find it in storms, you can find it in the typical shell of the Nautilus, and you can find it in other fractal patterns from plants. So extremely interesting. And now, because it's natural, when we can observe it also in our hands, by the way. Yeah, this is the length of A plus B divided by A is 1.6. And by the way, this is always 1.6. So if you look at this proportion will always be 1.618. Yeah, so very, or an approximation to that. Of course, everybody's hands is going to be different, but the approximation is quite close. Yeah, 1.6, 1.6, this one to this one, this one to this one, this one to this one is very similar. And you can find it also in the pentagram, which is a really interesting figure. We're going to explore this when we come to number 5 in the course. But here you have the proportion of this would be A plus B, and this would be A, and this would be B. So again, we would have this, A, B, A plus B, and then the next one here. So this is again following Fibonacci sequence, and therefore the golden ratio. It's in so many ways, we find this everywhere in nature. And we have utilized that to build things like the Giza pyramid, following the proportion of the golden ratio. And when you have things that are built with that proportion, they have an impact on us. We can see there is something in them that is kind of magical. So that's very significant. And that 1.61, let me write it here. This phi 1.61. This is not transcendental, but it is irrational. Irrational number, but very significant. All right. Well, let's take all this and let's bring it to the human body now. As I said, as above, so below. If we are observing this in nature, we're finding this within us. And I have a little drawing to show you. the most famous Vitruvian man, yeah? From Da Vinci. And this beautiful drawing that Da Vinci did, he was actually studying some drawing from an architect, Vitruvius, and he found it very interesting. This is what he wrote, yeah? In the members of a temple, there ought to be the greatest harmony in the symmetrical relations of the different parts to the general magnitude of the whole. What I just read, isn't that what I just mentioned about the Hindu temples? It's exactly the same, right? So they were trying to follow these perfect proportions. When you see the temple, it communicates some sense of harmony to us because we are in this proportion. I remember I was learning about this, somebody told me, look, isn't it right that when you're walking up the stairs, the step is just right, and some steps are just weird. Some stairs have too narrow steps or too big ones, and they just feel weird to you. So there is some golden ratio even in the construction of stairs. Simple. And it's not about your legs being longer or not. I have very long legs, I'm very tall, but it's not about that. So, then again, just like the temple, yeah, he says, then again, in the human body, the central point is naturally the navel. Okay? For if a man be placed flat on his back, with his hands and feet extended, and a pair of compasses centered at his navel, now we find the word compasses, the fingers and toes of his two hands and feet will touch the circumference of a circle described their form. So he's talking about this image, yeah? With the arms up, the legs up, the center is the navel, here we have the circle. Well, okay. And just as the human body yields a circular outline, so too a square figure may be found from it. For if we measure the distance from the soles of the feet to the top of the head, and then apply the measure to the outstretched arms, the breadth will be found to be the same, exactly as the height, as in the case of plane surfaces which are perfectly square. Well, isn't this the quadrature of the circle? So you see, Leonardo da Vinci was also fascinated with this point, and even the architect Vitruvius, who created this first design, even though it would be more famous Leonardo da Vinci because of the drawing, right? But interesting, the circle, the center is the navel. In the square, the center is the root chakra. Did you ever notice that? So, could it be interesting? Well, it is when we go and we start looking at the chakras, and we find that in the first chakra, this quadrature of the circle kind of manifests in some way. As I mentioned, it is not because this square is not the same size with the circle. Is within the circle. It's not the same size. But it is implying that. It is implying there is a circle and there is a square. It's implying that in a number of ways. All right, let me get this out. All right, I'm going to go on with the chakras now. If you have any question or any comment, you can do so now, before I start with the chakras. So, square is something that manifests a certain stability, yeah? It's quite stable, quite basic, quite low in a way. The colors, I'm not going to talk about the colors. The colors are quite obvious. They follow the pattern of the rainbow, just like light, just the way light is diffracted. So we're not going to go into the whole colors, not even the letters within. I did that in the other video. But this square is representing something grounded, something very basic. I find it interesting that the square is on the basis of the first chakra. And I kind of connect it to the 4 because this is 4 sides. So there has to be a connection between the 4 and the 1. 4 and the 1. Now what I mean by this is that when we are doing numerology and we say, well, those numbers which add up to 10 are special, like 2 and 8, 3 and 7, but also those which add up to 5, because 5 is the number in the middle, and 5 being the number in the middle is the point of balance. So if you want to find a balanced life, you need to combine those which add up to 5. Now 1 and 4 is 5. So in the first chakra, having a 4-sided diagram, symbol, the square, that is connecting the 1 and the 4. So that's interesting. Let's see. Infinity says, Hindu temples were built as per the Agam Shastras. The measurements were down to angstroms and subatomic scales in the physical realm, and the space above the deity represents the subtle body and the chakras. Nice. And they were following this fractal proportion, right? Some parts of the temple had to be in proportion to the whole, and they had to be self-similar to the whole, right? So let me know if you know more about these Agam Shastras, how they operated in terms of fractal and in terms of sacred geometry. Did they follow the golden rule when they were designing it? And I wonder, how would they check if it was in the golden rule? Did they have a way to calculate something is 1.61? How would they do that? If you know about this, Infinity, please share with us. It would be interesting. Well, we go to the first chakra. Remember, this is the center. We just mentioned this, is the center of the square in which the human body is contained. So this is the square, and the square is found right here. And generally, here we can find also a drawing of a cave and a phallus, representing the Shiva Lingam, where Kundalini is coiled inside. I don't do that because I want to go into the sound. I was working with sound when I did this drawing. But you will find that in some drawings of the Muladhara chakra with the snake coiled. And this is not the cave. This is the entrance to the cave. So the cave would be between the first and the third chakra. So between the center of the square and the center of the circle, this is where the cave is. The woman womb, the womb in the woman, where the babies can grow. So this is where life can grow. And this is where Kundalini lies. This is where Kundalini is asleep. So this is the entrance to the Kundalini, and you would find that here in the drawing, the gate towards the cave. Infinity says, sure, if you just type Agama Shastra on Google, you'll see how it's representing the human system with all its proportions. Nice. I will check it out. I will write it down. Agama Shastra. I never looked at it before. Thank you, Infinity. So, I don't know how much in depth we want to go through the different symbols. I will do a little bit and then we'll see. If any question arises, we can talk about it. But okay, so we have the circle. The circle is going to be in all of them. And it will have 4 petals. These are the sounds that vibrate in the petals. And it's interesting, the 4. Well, enough. Okay, let's go to the second chakra. Second chakra, we have the circle again. But now here within, we find this crescent moon. Well, it's not so difficult to imagine why, right? The moon is a symbol for fertility, a symbol for femininity and sexuality. The moon is linked to feminine. It's the sun is masculine and the moon is feminine. So this square and solid and basic, and the Shiva Lingam, this is very solid and masculine. This is a feminine chakra. So this is a masculine chakra. This is a feminine chakra. And the next chakra is going to be masculine again. The next one is going to be feminine again. And there is this constant dance between polarities. They are never in fight with each other. They are just in a dance. So in the second chakra, we find the moon representing the feminine, and that's within the circle. And now we go up to six petals. And I don't know. If you want to know more about the petals, as I mentioned, you can check the video on the vibrations of the petals. I feel like there is much more about why is it 4 and why is it 6. I haven't gone too deep into why is it 6 petals. Maybe somebody knows. You can tell us, but I will leave it here. Now here, from the first to the third, this is another masculine chakra. This is when the 10 petals arrive and the first inverted triangle appears. Ra, the sound of sun, yeah? So here's the first triangle. And this first triangle, you can understand it like it's pointing down, like it's saying, this is where we come from. This is the origin of the energy. So the energy is kind of opening up as well. And it's also telling us the navel has to be anchored. So it's pulling us down towards the root, keeping us anchored as well. So that's one way to see it. Now, sometimes I've drawn the human body and I draw the different chakras. Let me see if I have a drawing here. A recent one, so I don't have to draw it again. Yeah. This is from the other day. In Spiral Dynamics, we were exploring this and I mentioned the first 3 chakras is the lower triangle. The higher 3 chakras is the higher triangle. And sometimes we draw them like this, pointing up and pointing down. However, when we look at the triangles in the chakras, all of them point down. We're going to see that all of the chakras, the energy points down, which can be a number of things. I believe there is probably one of those paradoxes of the spiritual path. There's a double thing going on. Just like when you inhale, you can feel yourself being more lighter, like elevating, yeah? And opening up. But inhaling is like air is going in. So am I going out or am I going in? I did a video not so long ago and I was guiding a meditation. I called it the sun conscious meditation. You may have watched that one or done the practice. In that one, I was exploring the duality of feeling that when you are inhaling, you are actually, the air is going in, but your feeling is that you are going out because you're expanding. There's always this double feeling, something is going in, something is going out. In the same way with the energy Kundalini, something is going down and something is coming up. Yeah, there is, your spirit is descending, is crystallizing, is descending into you, and at the same time the Kundalini is ascending. Right? Your consciousness is awakening and the blessing is coming down. So there is this double feeling. And when we look at this diagram, this says, well, look, this is where we come from, the animal side, where we need the Dharma. This is where we operate the generating, organizing, destroying, G-O-D, yeah? This is where we operate the heart. This is the human level. And this is our connection to the spirit, which is pointing up. But we shouldn't go either down nor up. These triangles are not there to disperse our energy, but rather to connect to that from the heart. So the idea is always to stay in the heart and connect to the others. But when we see the path of the Kundalini passing through the chakras, we're going to see that all the chakras that show a triangle, the triangle is actually pointing down. So you can see it like this is telling you to make sure that you are well anchored on the base, because if you don't have a stable Muladhara, you may be imbalanced in the energy. It can also be saying, be humble, remember that you come from a point. You can also see it like the Kundalini is expanding and is opening and is going up. So you can see it in both ways if you wish. There's going to be one chakra where there's an exception to this, and we will get to it very, very soon. In fact, right now. Because we just went through the navel and we went through this inverted triangle, and we're going to go up. But first we have a message. Let's see. Infinity. It's related to the sound. So the 33 consonants are feminine, Shakti, and masculine bijas. Vowels are masculine. There are 16, adding up to 49, which are the original sum of triangles of the Sri Yantra. Are you referring to the petals of the chakras? If so, yes, there is a relationship to the petals in the yantras. I put that in the other video on the course on the sounds. All these are consonants, except when we come down to the throat, which is where we produce all sound. Here's where we have the vowels and some semi-vowels. Except also the other semi-vowels, yara, la, which are very special, and they are the bija sounds of the first three The Ya is the fourth, Ra is the third, and La is the second. Va is in the second. Sorry, La is the first, and this is the second. So these four sounds are the bija sounds for the first four chakras. So it's very interesting that they are all here. But why does it have 10? I don't know. I mean, I've been reading some websites in the internet, and there's a number of interpretations. I'm not 100% convinced about those interpretations. One thing I would say, for example, 10 is 0, is God. So again, we come back into the 0. So it would make sense to me that if this is 10 petals, is because the 10 is the 0. And the 0, if we go back to the Vitruvian man, remember the 0, the circle, the center is on the navel. So if you see the 10 petals linked to the 0, and the 0 linked to the navel, while 4, the square, linked to the center is the first chakra, and that's a square with 4 petals. So that kind of connects why there is 4 petals and there is 10. But there could be other reasons why there is 10 and not 12 or 16. Now, I mentioned there is many triangles, and I mentioned that one of the chakras was different, and that's Anahata chakra. Because Anahata chakra is the beautiful combination of the inverted triangle and the triangle, and the two of them together making these 6-pointed stars, which to me, as I understand it, as I interpret it, is when the meeting of the animal and the spiritual happen in the heart. So when we are transcending and benefiting from everything we have learned through countless lives incarnating as animals, and this animal side, as we have evolved through it, we can gather the benefits of that learning and bring them up. And when we open ourselves fully to the divine and the spiritual, and we allow it to come down, then this comes down. So you bring this down and you bring this one up, and the two triangles meeting in the center create this symbol. Yeah, so that you see. I hope I'm being clear. Let me just draw it very quickly. So the higher triangle, this is the heart, this is the lower triangle, and then this one brings down, this one is bringing up, and then you have the higher, and then you have the lower, and the two of them meeting. Where do they meet? In the heart. So to me, it makes a lot of sense. So Infinity says it's because they believe the Sanskrit alphabet make up the nervous system in its subtle form, so each count corresponded to each place of the spinal cord in subtle body. Yes, I understand that, and I like that idea that the different sounds of the alphabet are manifesting within us and they are vibrating all through us. My question is, why one chakra would have 12 and not 13 or 14 or 16? So why particularly Anahata chakra would have 12 sounds? Yeah? So, I mean, 12 is 6 times 2. We can connect it to the 6th chakra. We know that the 6th and the 4th chakra are very much connected. If your heart is closed, you have no intuition. If you are afraid, then your heart closes. So there is a connection between the 4 and the 6, but I wonder if that's the connection. Yeah. I mean, you have the 6-pointed star, so you have, I think this one, of all of them, this is one of the easiest to perceive, because you see the 6-pointed star and the extra petals happening between every point of the star. So it makes total sense. To me, it makes sense. The 10, because it's linked to the circle, the 4 being linked to the 4. It's just, I'm not sure about Sadhisthana. Why does it have to be the 6? So, I don't know. Maybe somebody knows. You can let me know. But then we come to Vishuddha. So it's clear the connection of the two triangles, hopefully. And now we come to Vishuddha, where we produce all the sounds. This is the throat chakra. And so here we have 16, I think it is. Am I right? Yeah, 16 sounds, which is 4 times 4. And we have, again, the triangle, and inside the moon, but this time is full. And the circle within. Yeah. So there's a number of things here happening, but the thing is, up until here, we were expressing masculine and feminine polarity. This is masculine, this is feminine, the moon in a crescent form. This is masculine, this is feminine. And now here is the balance of both. Here is the mixture of both. And we could see the triangle more masculine shape, especially pointing down like that. Well, not necessarily actually. Pointing up would be more masculine. But anyway, the triangle in itself, it has 3 sides, so it's more masculine. And the moon is more feminine, and the both of them together is kind of the mixture of both. So this could be the throat. The throat is the meeting of both. That's where we produce all the sounds. And this is where all the vowels come up. How are you putting the vowels before? The consonants are feminine and the vowels are masculine. I didn't learn it that way. I learned it actually the opposite. Like the vowels are considered matrikas. Isn't it called matrikas, the vowels? Which matrika is the word mater, like mother. So when I learned about the vowels, and I think there was something from Aurobindo on this was connected to the feminine energy, in the meaning that the vowels are what give the spirit. Or I think Aurobindo was saying like the consonants are the body and the vowels are the spirit. So the vowels are giving the spirit to the body. Yeah. Fritz Story says, I like the muted heart you have made behind Ya. Great job on the graphics, by the way. The muted heart. Oh, yes. Yeah. It's a very soft heart. Yeah, thank you. Infinity. That's related to many things. First, deity, yoga. So each Bishakshara is like a deity. In Tantric tradition, there's many types of deities. So to arrive to the central deity, you have to cross the Guinness. All right. Yeah, there's always going to be the polarity, yeah, and male and female, and go both mixing together to form everything. And bijas are masculine because they are piercing, and consonants are like the womb receiving it. Well, it's interesting. I learned in a different way. But what you call bijas is, what do you mean by bijas? You mean bijas like the consonants? Because bijas, to me, bijas are this sound, ha, ya, ra, and va, and la. These are the bija sounds. And there could be a number of interpretations, probably, on everything that we learn. Sanskrit is full of that, isn't it? It is designed in such a way that you can interpret it in many ways. I think somebody who studies Sanskrit will say that the first thing that seems is like everything has a synonymous. It's like everything can be interpreted in many ways. And there could be 1,000 ways to describe something, right? You are, I don't know, Infinity. Do you speak Sanskrit? Have you learned Sanskrit? Is it like that, the experience, that there are so many synonyms, there are so many ways to understand the same word and so many ways to interpret it? I think it's like reading the Yoga Sutras. There's all these words, and there's very few verbs. I think there's like 4 verbs in the whole Yoga Sutra. So it's just a collection of words put together so that in order to extract meaning, you have to interpret that. And to interpret it, you need a teacher. And that's why it's created in that way, that you need somebody to guide you in understanding it. And that's why there are so many people translating and retranslating and understanding the different teachings in many ways, like the Yoga Sutras. And some translations and interpretations can be quite different. But yeah, this concept about masculine and feminine and consonants and vowels, it may be different in the way I learned it. Infinity says, in New Age, most of current texts are messed up by translations. In original Tamil and Sanskrit texts, you can find those. All right. But Infinity, do you understand Sanskrit? If so, tell me, what is the word that you use for vowel? And what is the word that you use for consonant? Because I understood that vowel was matrika or something like that, something very similar. I may mispronounce it because I have a very strong Spanish accent, but I understood it was that. Tell us if it's that, please. It would be useful for us to learn, to know that. Well, we come up to the 6th chakra, And here we find again this inverted triangle, quite amazing. And here is the big change. Up until the 5th chakra, this is something we find with the drawings of the yogis, with the chakras. The first 5 chakras relate to the first 5 tattvas. So it's mostly our experience world, the world we experience through the 5 senses, the 5 tattvas. So there's most of our experiences through there. When we go beyond, this is some kind of different seeing. Yeah, the third eye, it sees something else. It's like the perception of the invisible. So when we come here, it has changed. Out of all these petals that we were having here, these 16 petals, now is coming to 2 petals. And the 2 petals generally what they represent is the sun and the moon meeting together, merging together, because Ida and Pingala, the 2 channels, main channels in the body, will merge in the third eye. And from here onward, the path is just one path, is the Sushumna. But up to here, you have the Ida and the Pingala on both sides, and the masculine and the feminine. So this whole discussion about what is masculine and feminine, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter, because we will want to transcend. So at the end of the day, we just want to go beyond masculine and feminine polarity. We just want to find the soul doesn't have sex, it doesn't have polarity. The soul is just one. Yeah. So it's interesting in Ajna Chakra that all the petals condense into these 2, and they merge in here. There's this connection between the 2. I do the sound ah in a very triangle shape on purpose, pointing upwards. So kind of like telling you to go up as well. And that's the Kundalini rising. And well, Sahasrara is just 1,000 petals. I think Saha means 1,000. Maybe Infinity will confirm. I think Saha means 1,000. So Sahasrara would be like the wheel of 1,000 petals. And that's it. That's the conclusion. Here we have all of them together. And we can see all the symbols going up. Interesting that this is half moon, like the crescent moon. It has not manifested yet. And this is another thing about the symbology of the moon. Here it is crescent. It means it can grow. It means that it is still, you can even see it, it's almost like a cradle, like getting ready to receive the seed. And in fact, this Va is in the space of the cave. And in this cave is where the baby will be born, or in this case, Kundalini rise. And it's unmanifested. It's potential. The sexual energy is a potential energy. It can manifest a baby, but not yet, right? This potential energy, the sexual energy, you can transcend it. Yeah? You can elevate it and transmute it. And as it goes through the throat, now you have the full moon here in the throat, which is interesting. Now it's full. Yeah, the throat is words. In the beginning was the Word was with God, the Word is God. Yeah, the Word is creation, Word is G-O-D. Your words can create, can organize, can destroy. So the whole power of the moon, here it was in the potency, there was a potency to happen. Here is manifested. Your words contain seeds, they are manifested powers. Infinity says, vowels are swara, consonants are vyanjana. And there are 4 other namas or conjunct consonants. All those are chanted in nyasas when consecrating a human body to make it God. All right. So I don't know where I got this matrika from, the term matrika associated to vowels. I will check it out. Again. And I will read the Aurobindo quotes that I used in the videos on the mantras, because I remember reading something about matrikas related to the vowels. In any case, swara, swa, that also to me sounds a feminine sound. Wa is like the sound of water. Wa, swara. So I would still, with the term of swara, would connect it to water, but maybe it's because, having learned it like this so many years ago, it has stuck to me that the vowels are feminine. A way of seeing this, the way I learned it, is that consonants are dead. You cannot do a consonant without a vowel. You cannot do t without the You cannot do p without a. So every consonant needs a vowel to manifest. And, the male cannot be born without the female. The female is what gives the possibility for the consonant to manifest. So I think the quote from Aurobindo is that the vowels are the spirit. So it gives the spirit to the body of the consonant. And then the body can change and it will change the meaning of the word. But the spirit comes with a vowel. The vowel brings the breath. Because doesn't have any breath. I can do yeah? But that's the breath. And the breath is the breath of life. And the thing that gives the breath of life, that's the feminine. So I associate it like that. I don't know if it helps or is more confusing. Let's see. Vowels. Swara yoga is a secret yoga of the breath. That's right. And breath, and linked to the two nostrils, right? And that's polarity and breath, which are the two feminine chakras. So again, Swara, I link it to the feminine. But again, this is why Sanskrit texts can be interpreted in so many ways. And no matter how you interpret it, there's always something to learn from that. And at the end of the day is what we say. At the end of the day, beyond the polarities is where we're going. So it doesn't matter whether it's one way or the other. There is no disagreement. Let's say that it's wide enough to contain all possibilities, to write it in that way. I feel like I've been running to get here. I've been like rushing a little bit maybe through some of the mathematical section. I wanted to cover all these things. I hope I made it justice. I honored the material and the topic is fascinating. And looking forward to learn more about this. So if you've been watching this and you know something that you would like to contribute, please write it in the comments of the video. And so we can all share more and learn more from this. But for me, I think it's already enough. The video reached a good spot. Thank you everyone for watching, and for those of you who are present and commenting, thank you very much. Thank you everyone who is supporting the channel. I appreciate every member who is contributing as well. And share the video if you enjoyed it. If you didn't do a like, you can like the video and share it with others if it's you think could be of interest to other people. And so we can help the channel grow all together. Thank you very much. Until next time, Satnam.